One of the most important and beautiful business advices that I can give on your podcast. You know, there's this beautiful story of this guy from Uttar Pradesh who joined us as our fourth employee. When we sort of did the acquisition, he made $500,000. Acha, what is he doing with that money? He has...
What are you saying?
Satya Nadella, right? Satya has built Microsoft. One of the things that he's cared about a lot is the word empathy. You can use that towards your customers. कि यार customer को क्या महसूस हो रहा है, उसका problem क्या है? Then if you solve for that, then you actually build a business.
As someone who's wanting to get into entrepreneurship, what all he can expect?
If you're building in India, be close to the end customer.
Just to explain BMS a bit.
A battery management system is the brain of a battery.
You would have made a lot of money. Why did you decide to exit at that time?
So we sold 51% in the start and then 49% over 5 years. So it's an earn-out. The overall value was about...
Wow.
So when we were selling to one of the world's largest OEMs, there was a price discussion that was happening. And this person told me, Akhil, when Shah Rukh Khan did his first movie, do you think he negotiated price with the producer? Shah Rukh Khan negotiates today.
Guys, welcome to another electrifying episode of the Akash Gupta Show powered by 100 Unicorns, our new sponsor. India ke one of the top accelerators focusing on early stage startups. Backed by Venture Catalyst, a global startup accelerator. अब सभी startups के लिए एक बहुत ही काम की बात. ये अपने fund 1 से अभी तक 145 startups में $100 million का investment कर चुके हैं. In industries like fintech, edtech, Web3 and deep tech. Some of their portfolio firms are Videoverse, Zingbus, Snapmint, TrueNative, BlueSmart, and even आपका अपना Zip Electric. And now they are on to their second fund where they are looking to invest $200 million in 200 startups this time in sectors like D2C, Agritech, SaaS, and FinTech. So if you are a startup and you're looking for funding, then you know who to reach out to. The आकाश गुप्ता शो में आपका फिर से स्वागत है. आज मैं बात करूंगा एक ईवी एंटरप्रेन्योर से. 8 साल पहले मैं इनको मिला था जब मेरी भी कंपनी स्टार्ट हो रही थी, इनकी भी कंपनी स्टार्ट हो रही थी. हम भी एक छोटे से रूम में थे, ये भी एक छोटे से रूम में थे. आज इन्होंने अपनी कंपनी पिछले 7 साल में 300 करोड़ की बना के बेच दी है. साथ में एक दूसरा बिजनेस बना रहे हैं. लाइफ के बारे में जो इनके थॉट्स हैं वो बहुत ही क्रिस्टल क्लियर हैं. एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप में कैसे आपको सक्सेस मिलेगी वो आपको कुछ मंत्रास बहुत क्लियरली अखिल आर्यन से सुनने को मिलेंगे, जो कि फाउंडर है आयन एनर्जी के. स्टार्टअप का नाम आपने बहुत ज्यादा सुना नहीं होगा, बट बैटरी मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम और ईवी का जो ब्रेन होता है उसके बारे में भी इस पॉडकास्ट में आपको सुनने को मिलेगा. तो डाइव राइट इन एंड जस्ट शेयर योर कमेंट्स ऑन हाउ यू लाइक इट. ऑसम, गुड टू सी यू अखिल. राइट, मुझे याद है 2018 में 2017 में I was in Mumbai. I was pitching to Venture Catalyst and I came to see you. I think you were there listening to my pitch, and then you showed me that you were doing something with the batteries. A very small room office, which was all tech, all batteries khol rahe ho. 2017 में, right? When I think nobody was thinking electric so much. हम खुद सोचते हैं that what we are doing today is now people are recognizing. Exactly. But you were doing much deeper stuff in EV than what we do at that time. So just take us through your beginnings. What got you into this? What is the business? There are so many companies associated to your name now. Just take us through your journey, man, where it all started.
So it all really started when my father wanted to sell his car. And I thought, why don't we convert it to an electric car? Because Tesla was becoming quite a big name at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, kitna mushkil ho sakta hai? Let's just do a retrofit.
This is which year? How old were you?
And how old I was? I think 26, 27 at the time. And I was building Haptic, which was my previous business.
You know Akrit well?
I mean, yes, I was leading all product and growth at Haptic. When Haptic also started, we were a very small room and then scaled that to 650 people. Wow. But yes, so I was at Haptic at the time, and I was thinking, how can we convert this car to an electric vehicle? Right. And that got me into understanding that the battery is actually about 40% of the cost of the vehicle, right? So the battery is the most expensive and the most complicated component of an EV. Yeah. And so I was wondering, what if there was a way that you could separate the battery from the vehicle and sell the vehicle, but not the battery? Which is basically, if you think about it, the main reason why electric vehicles are not purchased because they're more expensive than internal combustion vehicles, right? And so if there was a way to not sell the battery and then sell the battery per kilometer or per charge, then you can separate the cost. And
you were thinking of
that's what I was thinking, right?
Very interesting, because that is what is now happening.
Exactly. Nice. So now that was the plan. So we saw that there was a company in Taiwan called Gogoro.
Obviously.
Exactly, of course. You guys know Gogoro very well. And, we saw what they were doing there, right? So they had basically sold the vehicle without the battery, put the swapping station. Like, yaar, ye...
Gogoro was an inspiration.
Absolutely.
You should be listening.
100%.
Nice.
And so, they really figured it out, right? Like the design, the aesthetic, the deployment, it was amazing. And so it's like, boss, ye India mein chal sakta hai. If you can do this in India, it's going to be massive. And so we took inspiration from Gogoro, very much so, and tried to design our swappable battery pack. So that's the battery pack that you saw.
Yeah, we went to the scooter also, and then you showed me something.
So it was a swappable battery pack that we were designing. But like you also identified, we were probably like maybe 2 or 3 years early ahead of the market. And so we didn't necessarily see the OEM adoption because you need OEM partnership to sort of have that battery, integrated. And so we pivoted from there when we went to the OEMs. See, when you're in the business of battery swapping or battery financing, also vehicle financing today, your business is extracting the highest life and performance from that asset. You're basically, sweating that asset as much as you can, most efficiently possible. So we had built a lot of tech on battery management, and we had also built a lot of cloud software to manage fleets of batteries. Okay.
Oh, you did?
I mean, that was the point, right? If I'm selling you a vehicle and I own the battery, then it's in my interest to extend the life of those batteries.
But just hold on there, because I want to know that how come you were doing so much of tech at that time? Are you an engineer? Where are you from? What got you straight away into doing so many, mechanical and software things together?
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the things, I'm not an engineer. I studied finance. Yes. From HR college in Mumbai.
Really? That's all?
That's it. So I'm just a bachelor's in financial markets from HR college.
Amazing. And you were doing this crazy battery BMS stuff?
Yeah.
So थोड़ा समझाओ यार, लोग ये नहीं कर पाते.
यार ये बहुत सिंपल है, ठीक है? आपको समझना है कि formal education is valuable as much as your interest is in, for example, getting a job. But for me, since I was quite young, I always knew that entrepreneurship is my way forward, right? I always believed in building companies, and that comes naturally to you. Not everyone is an entrepreneur, not everyone is an employee. But if you know that at the heart of your heart, you're someone who wants to build an enterprise, then formal education can do so much for you. But eventually you have to realize an important thing, that your laptop, your computer, your phone is a gateway into, the world's knowledge pool, right? So anything that you have genuine curiosity for, you can spend maybe 6 hours and learn the basics. And then depending on which part sort of, intrigues you, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so for me, I self-taught myself programming. I self-taught myself what is the meaning of voltage, current, temperature. What is the difference between watts and volts? वो मुझे पता नहीं था.
But academics में इतना नहीं किया तुमने.
Academics है ही क्या? मतलब there is knowledge. It's not about, academics these are labels, right? Fundamentally, there is knowledge. That knowledge is fortunately in our generation now accumulated in a free online resource, right? You can go to YouTube, you can go to TEDx, you can go to lots of places and learn something in depth. Like today, there are generative AI courses that you can just take up. It doesn't matter whether you're an accountant or whether you're a lawyer. If you want to learn Gen AI, in a matter of 2 months, you can become 20% better than 80% of people in any room. Right? You may not be like a global expert, right? Like in any conversation, you can have 20% more knowledge than 80% of the people in that room.
And you own the conversation then, in that sense. But ये तुम्हें कब click किया? Because you, I don't know whether you always wanted to be an entrepreneur या कभी ना कभी click किया कि मेरे को entrepreneurship में जाना है. You're working in haptic, you did your HR course.
No, I think entrepreneurship was in my blood. Like, when I say in my blood, it's not so much about my dad. My dad was also a businessman. He runs a small jewelry store in Mumbai. Okay. But more importantly, what became clear, I think the first part of my life until I was 25, the desire for entrepreneurship was driven by wealth creation, mainly just making money. Sure. And then when I was 25, 26, I realized that a company is actually a vehicle to serve. So you can choose who you want to serve, you can choose what impact you want to create and use the business as a vehicle to take you there. Okay. So that's what shifted for me since 25, and now my perspective on entrepreneurship is very different.
Okay, can you share that?
Yeah, so it's this, right? Like it's exactly that. Like today, you have to decide, who do you want to serve, almost as if you're in service to them, right?
Nice, actually.
And a company enables you to do that sustainably. When I say sustainably, if you generate profits, you can do more of it. So today, if you think about a lot of charity, that happens, a lot of CSR that happens, a lot of sponsorship to athletes, a lot of sponsorships to, events that are actually helping lots of people, they're coming through the profit pools created by enterprises, right?
That's right.
And so today, if you become a cash flow positive company and you are generating positive cash flow, you can use that for practically any form of service. You can build schools, you can build hospitals, you can give employment. Like employment is also a form of service, right? So helping people build their careers, helping people sort of unlock versions of themselves through the growth of a business is how I think of service.
Wow, this is very interesting form and definition of entrepreneurship, by the way, which is so true. When I think of it, it's so true. But you've said it in such a simple sense.
In fact, Satya Nadella, right? He has a beautiful book, right? Where I think it's called Hit Refresh or something like that. I believe that's the name. In the book, he talks about the fact that, of course, Satya has built Microsoft into like a mammoth company, right? And one of the things that he's cared about a lot is the word empathy. Okay? It's funny, like when you use the word empathy, you can use that towards your customers कि यार customer को क्या महसूस हो रहा है, उसका problem क्या है, उसको मतलब क्या चाहिए. Then if you solve for that, then you actually build a business. आप सोचो supplier empathy कि supplier का problem क्या, मतलब उसको क्या चाहिए, उसको थोड़ा profit चाहिए, उसको थोड़ा consistent revenue चाहिए. If you can empathize with your suppliers, your customers, your employees, you can actually, your business is trying to serve these people. And in order to serve them, you have to build empathy towards them कि यार उसको क्या चाहिए.
But you need to get empathy also in return, right?
Look, I think like that's the part, right? Like if you can, it's not so much about get. When you talk about getting empathy, it's more about choosing the people that you serve or choosing your partners more than having these expectations of empathy. Because the world is full of different kinds of people, यार. मतलब यहाँ पे there are amazing people जो आपको 2-2 साल का credit दे देंगे कि ठीक है startup को support कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. And then there are like really, people who will try to get their piece of flesh की, either through, they'll ask you for interest or they'll ask you for, interest तो चलो if they supposed to get interest, they can charge you that interest. But there are people who will be predatory, and there will be people who will provide a platform.
That's right.
And you can choose who you decide to work with. And it's not like you always have the luxury of choosing the best. Sometimes if you have to go through, then you go through.
Yeah. I think we just digressed into something very interesting. But let's get back to your business. Yeah. So आपने batteries में कुछ कर रहे थे, and then?
Yeah. So batteries में कर रहे थे. When we took it to market, we saw that the OEMs, the customers that we were trying to work with, उन्होंने बोला कि यार ये हम swappable battery तो adopt नहीं करेंगे, but we are building an EV and we are looking for a battery management system. And since we had built the technology to manage our own batteries, they were willing to buy that from us. And so just like you guys have pivoted to find your sweet spot in the market right now, it was our moment of figuring out what does the customer really want. And then you have to align with where the market is pulling you.
Oh, wow. And who was this customer? Can you share
At the time, actually, we started with a few battery pack makers. So one of our big customers in the start was actually Exicom, which was a battery pack maker. Yes, Anand. So that was also an amazing, accident how we met and how we sort of worked together.
Share that?
No, it's actually amazing. I woke up one day and, I'd heard of Exicom, of course, but I received an email from our website form. So he was in Mumbai for one day. Anand was in Mumbai for one day. And I think he heard of our name somewhere. हम PR जो कर रहे थे startup के बारे में. So he filled up a form on our website.
Wow.
The contact us वाला.
Contact us वाला, ठीक है. And वो मुझ पर आता भी नहीं था. So it never used to come to me. It went to my business development manager. And she was like, hey, I know you were trying to get in touch with someone at Exicom. So some guy has, sent us a form. So she forwarded this. So I'm like, who is this Anand? Right? So of course, look up his name. Amazing guy, by the way, like legend in this space, right? Like done some really cool stuff.
They just did IPO.
I know. Yeah. Very, very good stuff. Anyway, so reached out to him. He's like, look, I'm flying out today evening, but I can meet you for lunch in the next 2 hours.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, man, let's go. So that's what happened. And of course, rest is history. But they were one of our big customers in the start. And then after that, we've now sort of gone to a point, you won't believe it. In the first 3 years of the company, we sold 1,000 BMSs total, battery management systems. Sure. Today, we are selling 1,000 BMSs every day.
Phenomenal. This is in 6 years, 4 years?
2017 to today. So
7 years.
7 years.
Wow.
But that's also a function of the market, right? Like if you look at how the market is growing.
1,000 a year to 1,000 a day.
Yeah. 1,000 in 3 years to 1,000 a day.
That's how the startup J curve is, man.
When you get, I would say the volume and velocity, I think the whole company changes.
So then you pivoted to BMSs, right? And what was so special about your BMS? Or there were no BMSs?
No, it's not just that. Of course, there were some elements that made us special. Special meaning that today, if you think about a battery management system, its most important function is safety and reliability. So if in the whole Indian ecosystem, there were a lot of incidents of whether fires, whether different things that happened. And we built a reputation because throughout that entire curve, we had 0 incidents. Right? So whoever we were supplying to, they could claim a higher reliability. They were seeing less failures on the road.
Okay.
Because most of these guys were buying something called protection circuit modules, PCMs, from China. Right?
Which are dumb BMSs is what you call it, right?
We don't call them anything. We just tell them don't use this because, at the end of the day, if you think about it, safety is paramount because if you have a safety incident, it's not so much the capital loss as much as it is the reputational loss. Like, you lose your entire reputation if there's an incident like that. True. Especially if it's because of an engineering fault. Like, it's not like a accident that has happened.
True.
So in any case, like we built our reputation as a reliable, safe product because we had invested a lot of time in product, in technology, in validation. And so that sort of got us a reputation and got us into rooms where people had burnt their hands, right?
Wow.
Now, if you're a large company, let's say you are one of the top 3, top 4 OEMs in the country, and you are launching your first EV, which product do you want to use?
Yeah.
Because today, if you're the largest OEM for 2-wheelers in the world or in the country, and you have an incident, you are going to lose market cap on the stock market.
Big time.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you want to work with the most reliable partners, and that's where we sort of came in.
Wow. But just a young startup and disrupting to be almost the...
But it's a new technology, right? That's the same thing with you. Like today, if you think about Zip, like what's the big deal? You're just a logistics company. Right. No, but you're using electric vehicles for it. So it makes it completely different, right? The fact that you have to manage charging infrastructure, you have to maintain uptime, maintenance of the vehicles. So while the business is straightforward, the fact that you're working with new tech completely changes.
And how you're integrating it into the ecosystem of India. Yeah. But so many China BMS players have been existing so far, right? And I'm sure that you guys did something much better. And you guys were not the cheaper BMS. Because I remember that we had those conversations very early days. I said, yaar, itna mehenga, main to nahi lagaunga. Maybe because I was, in a different business. Yeah. But today, do you supply to all the top OEMs? All the two-wheeler guys also? Right. Who all? Can you name them?
We don't necessarily name them right now. But I would say, with the exception of Ola and Ather, who are sort of doing their own thing, anyone else that is doing anything significant will use our product either directly or indirectly. Indirectly meaning that they might be buying a battery from another battery pack supplier, but that supplier uses my product. So we are the tier 2 in that case. And in many cases, we're a tier 1 where we'll directly supply to the OEM.
Wow. And so just to explain BMS a bit, to the audience, which is very important part. Can you spend like 2 minutes on a BMS and what is a good BMS and a bad BMS?
Sure. So a battery management system is the brain of a battery. So we established a battery is the most expensive part of the vehicle, of an electric vehicle. So if you have a bad battery management system, right? Battery management system typically does, I would say, 3 things. The first one is maintains safety, right? The second one is does something called state estimation. Right? So we'll talk about what state estimation means. And third is that it protects any kind of incidents that should not happen. So it sort of cuts off the power or cuts off the battery from any bad incidents. Okay. So for example, today, let's talk about state estimation. One of the most important things of a battery management system as the brain of the battery is to tell you what is the percentage of battery left, state of charge. So on your phone, sometimes you can see, 78% battery left. But suddenly it will fall down to 70% or 65%, and there's a sudden drop. But on your phone, you don't really care. You can put it on charge and that's fine. You have a power bank. But imagine if you're driving a car and it says you can go 50 kilometers. So you think मैं घर पहुंच जाऊंगा, ठीक है? And अचानक से वो
That's messy. That's very messy. Yeah.
So you lose the entire trust from that brand of the vehicle. You're like, boss, what is this? Right? How can I trust ki how much battery is left? So your range estimation algorithm depends on the state of charge algorithm, which depends on the quality of the BMS. Okay, so that's one. Exactly. So it's how do you sort of take voltage, current, and temperature of a specific chemistry, convert that at any point in time, what is your state of charge? Based on that state of charge, what is the range that you can estimate? So that the accuracy of that will sort of tell you which BMS is better, which one is not very good.
And yours would be accuracy wise
98% plus.
98%.
So because now we've collected a lot of data as well, right? In fact, on all of our BMSs, we are collecting almost 100 parameters every single second over millions of miles every single day.
Oh, and this is all IoT integrated?
It's not IoT integrated in all cases, but we have local. So you can have edge processing, right? So today you have chips that can store and process like millions of data points on the edge.
Wow. And all of this, again, I'm going into that segue that you learned through acquired knowledge via YouTube, reading and stuff, and possibly built a team around it.
Exactly. So now this is the part, right? You have to, I think that's what I was saying outside, right? Founders get too much credit.
Yeah, I know.
At some point, we become delegating machines, right? You're
And reviewing machines.
and judgment. So basically, at the end of the day, what we are as founders today, we are operators of leverage. Okay, let's talk about this. As founders, we are actually controllers and operators of leverage. There are three forms of leverage. There is capital, there is labor, and there is distribution. Okay, so my job is to access these three forms of leverage and operate it. So as founders, we fundraise. We're looking for financiers. We're looking for capital to flow into the company. Second is labor. We're looking for high quality talent. We're trying to bring them inside the company, motivate them, incentivize them, integrate them into their roles. And the last one is distribution, which is customers, and how do we find channel partners, how do we find customers, partnerships to sort of get the product out. That's my job, right? What we actually do is just a function of where the opportunities lie, right? So am I doing BMS? Am I doing EV logistics? Am I doing interior design? That's secondary. Fundamentally, as a founder, we are operators of leverage, and I'm really good at that. You're really good at that. So as long as you understand, as long as you can attract capital, attract labor, attract distribution capabilities, and operate and leverage them well, you will build a solid business.
Your service will be set.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's interesting, right? So when you serve, if you serve, it sort of circles back and serves you. Because today you can look at your net worth, someone else's net worth. We care a lot about people's net worth. Money is simply a form in which society rewards people who have delivered value to society, right? So these people have in some form served, and so they have received service back. And so we can quantify that to some degree.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you that, if your P&L works in a way that your customer is happy to pay you well so that you can generate profits and return value to the shareholder, the equation is set. This is what business is. Everyone is served. And then it's a sustainable business.
When you're a cash flow positive business, you take 10% of that, 5% of that, tell your shareholders I'm going to do CSR. They will be happy.
Cash flow ki baat karte hain, because you also came in from an industry which was very new, right? Now, people didn't know much, but again, there might have been price pressures. There are all the time. And have you discounted your product at minus GM and sold it, or you've been always thought of profitability as a metric? How have been the segues happened in your 7 years, 10 years of the startup world?
Yeah, so we have never sold anything on negative GM ever. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. Like as soon as you start doing that, you're actually not building a business that is sustainable, right? But at the same time, it's very important to remain cognizant of the fact that there is something called competitiveness, right? If you are not competitive, you will not get business, or you will get business only for a short duration of time. So if there are points in time where we are not competitive, we have to work with the team to figure out what is the competition doing that we are not able to unlock, right? And if we are doing something different or better, then how can we communicate that to the customer? How can we benchmark and validate that we are adding more value, so pay us more money?
That's
right? And so these are the two, again, levers that we have.
Sure.
Either we look at something that we are missing out on, okay, and competitors are doing better, then we'll recalibrate for that, because we have to be competitive in the market.
That's right.
Like if you are selling something at 3,000, I cannot sell that for 13,
That's
right? I can maybe sell it for 3,500, and that too I have to justify how,
Correct.
right? But if I'm way off the target, there's something I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
So competition helps you remain competitive, right? So it tells you, what you are doing wrong.
That's right.
So you can benchmark and see what are we missing. On the flip side, if I know that you are making something, you are cutting a lot of corners just to be price competitive, then we will not do that. So we have not followed the chase the price to the bottom, right? We've said, look, let's make what does the customer really want? And if you think about it, at least in the automotive space today, more than making more money, right? A lot of OEMs in the world actually want to avoid these safety incidents, right? So today, if something is $5 more expensive or $3 more expensive, but you can verify and you can validate, कि boss, this reduces the probability of an incident by 60%, 70%. तो वो बोलेगा भाई $5 भरो,
I know.
right? Because what is the
delta of reputation is huge.
right? So what we will do is we will try to validate our position and benchmark ourselves and be like, look, this is the value that we are creating, so we are asking for this value.
Very nice. And you were okay that in that pricing technique, sometimes business is lower, but that's okay.
Many times. But the thing is, it's a function of, like I said, choosing who you work with. In fact, we chose not to work with today, if you look at the EV market, back in the day, 5 years ago, there were so many more OEMs. Like, like a 150, 200 OEMs. Everyone would send us, requests, please send us some BMS samples, please work with us, right? So we will say, look, we are not trying to win those customers actually, because their mindset is different, and we want to work with the volume creators of 2030, right? So when I saw your mission statement also outside, you want an all-electric future by 2030.
Yeah.
The idea is to be forward-looking, right? So we said, who are going to be the volume creators of 2030? How can we get into bed with them today? How can we literally start working with them today?
And cherry pick those.
Cherry pick, and then, one of the most important and beautiful business advices that I can give on your podcast, okay, is that if you are in the business of selling to enterprises or large businesses, the best way to do business is first find your way to a decision maker who is in a position of authority. Then when you enter that room with that person, start your meeting like this. You enter that room and say, sir, before we start our meeting, can I speak for 2 minutes? He'll be, of course, you can speak. You tell them, sir, before we start the meeting, I want to say that I have decided that you will buy my product. Okay? You don't get to decide that. I have already decided that you are buying my product.
Okay.
Here is a piece of paper. Here is a pen. Please write, what do you want from me?
Lovely.
So he will tell you what price he wants, what features he wants, what timeline he wants, what service he wants. ठीक है? If that person is being unreasonable, कि मतलब the thing that is 3,000 वो बोलता मुझे 500 में दो, तो मतलब you can't work with that person.
Sure.
But most likely, if they're a large company, they'll be reasonable.
Yeah.
Firstly, he will smile that you told this, right? Just like you smiled.
I like that.
He will smile.
Yeah.
Or he, she, whoever it is will smile. And be like, okay, a very nice, interesting young boy, young girl who's come to propose like this. They will typically not write anything, right? Because they will not do this, right? But they're like, okay, let's start the meeting. We will see how it goes. Like, no, sir, we will start the meeting. But please, either your team member or you, tell me exactly what you want. And my answer is yes.
Wow.
Right? When you start like that.
Win them over.
Because this is how large enterprises want to build suppliers, right? They want to build a supply chain. And we are lucky, right? As entrepreneurs today, I remember when we were going to a large enterprise, I'll tell you a good story. So when we were selling to one of the world's largest OEMs, actually, we got into that room and there was a price discussion that was happening. Okay. So it was like almost towards the end. And we were trying to explain to them like why we need this, this price and this and this. And this person told me, Akhil, when Shah Rukh Khan did his first movie, do you think he negotiated price with the producer? Okay. I said no. He was giving him a break.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Shah Rukh Khan negotiates today, right? So I'm giving you a break in these large OEM ecosystems. You make money from the next OEM and the third OEM. I said, okay, sir, write your price, give me the document, let's go. Right? Because they also want to see that are you becoming a strategic supplier to them or are you just trying to win an opportunity? And I want to be a long-term strategic partner with anybody. So I'm not looking at short-term games. And this works when you're selling to large businesses or enterprises.
Talk about what happened after a few years. I heard of a crazy acquisition. I don't know, but you would have made a lot of money. Just share some of that. What all happened, and now the avatar that is Alter Go, Iron Energy. So just take us through that. How all that happened. And what was the acquisition? How much value did it get? Why did you decide to exit at that time? Samjhao thoda.
So, look, I think one of the jobs that we as founders and actually all employees of any organization have is that you should have one question in the front and center of your mind. And that question is this in the best interest of the company, right? Whether you are spending on buying a flight ticket or taking a hotel, or whether you are spending on your interiors, coffee, कुछ भी, ये कंपनी के बेस्ट इंटरेस्ट में है. अगर है तो करते हैं, और नहीं है तो अगर if you can avoid, don't do it, right? So at some point, this business was scaling so fast, right, that we saw that we are actually losing margin and we are not able to remain competitive because our suppliers are charging us a margin and we are putting a margin on top of that margin, right? So today I was contract manufacturing and we had reached a scale where there was a benefit for setting up our own manufacturing unit.
Wow.
And that is a whole different beast. Right? If you want to get into manufacturing of hardware in India.
Before that, you were getting assembled.
Exactly. So we were working with a contract manufacturer. We were focusing on design, on software. And when it came time for that, and we could see that we are not competitive, Alex and me, so Alex is my co-founder, both of us sat down and we said, look, like this is not a core competency for us. Can we build a core competency? Maybe, we've done it before. But can we do it at a pace that is fast enough to compete with the competition, right? Because the competition is really good at manufacturing.
Wow. And there was competition?
Yes.
Like in BMS?
Yes. Even in BMS.
In India?
In India. So what was happening was a lot of electronic producers were partnering with European firms, bringing the technology and just doing the manufacturing here. So technology unka nahi tha. But because they had manufacturing abilities, they were very competitive on
and they had the capital.
Exactly. So our strength was tech, their strength was manufacturing. But because manufacturing was able to sort of bring the cost down, we decided that, look, we have to partner with someone who gets manufacturing. And at that point in time, it became quite clear to us that in order to scale from where we were at to like the next 2-3 orbit shifts, we need a partner who can invest in a manufacturing unit. And so that's when we started looking at strategic partners, strategic investments. And fortunately, we found Endurance. Endurance is one of the world's largest tier ones for that matter. They're a listed firm.
In manufacturing?
Yes. Wow. So they are a very large tier one supplier to the world's largest OEMs. Wow. But they were doing a lot of mechanical parts at the time. So, aluminum die casting, ABS, brakes, and so on and so forth, right? And we explained to them that, look, today you're doing a lot of mechanical parts, but the electronics is the future. So if you see today inside of cars, buttons are going away, touchpads are coming, right? Your door handles are going away, everything is becoming electronic, right? So from mechanical, we are turning to becoming more electronic driven. And so, this can be the expansion of an electronics arm for you, right? And they saw the vision that we saw. And so now we have our own 3-floor plant in Aurangabad where we are manufacturing our own BMSs, and not just BMSs. We're now doing chargers, MCUs, a variety of different advanced electronics.
Oh, wow. So you've got into larger other things also. Yes. But how was this? You approached them, they approached you. How's the...
I think that it was typically, again, as founders, right? We get a lot of inbound interest from a variety of different people, from investors, from strategic partners. And the kind of person that I am, I like to speak to them and keep them warm, at least understand what's happening in the universe. And so we were already in touch. They knew what we were doing. We knew about them.
Sure.
But when it became clear to us what our strategy was going to be, I met Anurang and Rohan for coffee, and I told them, look, this is what's happening. This is what we're thinking. If this is of interest to you, let us know. And they were like immediately ready, and they're like, look, this is very interesting for us. So when they showed interest and a few others, in fact, the guy who was doing contract manufacturing for us, even that guy wanted to try and buy the business. So we got some competition in the play. We got an investment banker to sort of help us manage the entire process and made it happen.
And how was the contour? Like 51% to them or what?
So we sold 51% in the start and then 49% over 5 years. So it's an earn-out.
Oh, wow.
The overall value was about 308 crores.
Wow.
And yeah, so since then we've actually dramatically grown, right? So if you see the year that we sold to last year, our revenue was 3.5 times. So basically 350% growth.
Since the time you sold?
Yes.
3x growth?
3x growth in the first year. Wow. We are 3xing again and then 3xing forecasted again.
So this is second year after acquisition, 5-year payout. So you remain the CEO?
I'm not the CEO at the moment. I'm managing director. We have a new CEO that sort of runs that business day to day. And then I'm helping with strategic expansion, customer acquisition, and so on.
And your co-founder?
He's still there as well.
He's still there. Yeah. Wow. And is life better like this? Or, I mean...
Now we're sort of growing much faster. We're able to beat competition where we have our own manufacturing unit. So we can actually also use their network because they're supplying to so many different OEMs. It opens doors and gets us on the table with all of those people that I would never be able to meet, right? So today, if you want to meet the CEO of Volkswagen, for example, like how will you navigate that sort of...
and they already work with them.
They can do that, right? Because they're already doing hundreds of millions of revenue with them. So being able to get in the right rooms, speak to the right people, give us a seat on the table is what they do. And then they also give us the back end to be able to support that.
Wow. And how much stake you had when you did this deal?
So at the time, between Alex and I would say we own about 70% of the company.
Wow. So which means almost 200 crores in the bank. I'm just doing the math.
I mean, typically these are structured as earnouts, right? So
over the next 5 years, right?
So it's trickled down, but I mean, yeah, I would certainly say that it was financially rewarding, not just for us, but also the employees. We had an ESOP pool. We had, there's this beautiful story of this guy from Uttar Pradesh who joined us as our 4th employee. And when we sort of did the acquisition, he made $500,000. And, his father called me and he's like, what have you done? And like, my life is, I'm getting goosebumps when I'm telling you.
I know. Same here, man.
Because that's the whole service element, right? Like it's actually not just you. Like, sure, I've made money, but like there are lots of other people, what is he doing with that money? So he has decided when he was in Uttar Pradesh, the village that he was living in, he had to walk 5 kilometers every day to his school. What are you saying? Okay. So now he's taken the money and he has decided to build a school right next to the village that he was from.
What are you saying? Yes. The 4 crore that he made.
So these small things, you can see the full circle of them.
And he's now getting into the service business himself in that sense. That's so nice. That's so empowering. And for you, it continues, the life remains same, or there's a change in life, the hustle is lesser or the hustle is more. Just tell us post-acquisition, right? How do you see life? And what is Akhil up to now?
Yeah, so I want to talk about 2 things over here. Sure. Number 1 is, I'll tell you how entrepreneurs should work. And I learned this from Naval.
Are you in touch with him?
No, I'm not in touch with him yet, but we will be.
Yeah, why not? Maybe KaashSeAkash. Kash.
When it becomes Akash, I'll text you.
Done. 100%.
But yeah, one of the things I learned from him is that, in today's economy, in today's world, as entrepreneurs, we have to think of ourselves as business athletes. A business athlete, how does an athlete work? They train really hard, and then they have a sprint, a performance period. And then after the performance period, they rest. So this is the cycle of an athlete. You train, you perform, you rest. In your rest, you reassess, you recalibrate, you review, what did I do wrong? What can I improve? And then when you're ready, you start training again. And so I would say post-acquisition, typically the performance period continues because, they have a lot of vested interest. But I would say in many ways, it also gives you some time to rest, to recalibrate, to reflect on your journey. And I think I'm probably towards the end of that reflection phase right now, and I'm about to start training again for something new.
Amazing. That's something that's coming up?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I think that I certainly feel like I have more service left in me. I don't know in what format, but I think that there's a lot more that we can do. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, like I was telling you, you mentioned All2Go, and we've actually only sold the electronics business of Ion.
The manufacturing business.
Exactly. Okay. So the parent company is called Ion Energy, and its electronics business was called Maxwell, which is what we sold. But we have a second business unit, which is the cloud software business called All2Go. And so, that still keeps me busy because I'm still CEO of that business.
Oh, so you had two businesses in that sense.
Yes.
And so that's more bandwidth then.
Yes. Yes. So that takes up a lot more bandwidth. It's also very interesting because All2Go is quite aligned with what's happening on the AI front with digital twins and how you can leverage advanced simulation and sort of compute to predict what an asset should be doing versus what it is doing, and sort of study the deviations between that to be able to predict and we're taking a prognostic view towards asset management instead of a diagnostic view. So today what happens is, if you have an analytics platform, let's say, so if something happens, aapko ek alert aata hai. Yeah, something gets notified that something has happened. And then it tells you, okay, what must have happened, go and investigate these things, right? Post-mortem. So that's called a diagnosis or a diagnostic view. Sure. We are building a prognostic view. So we want to predict and tell you weeks in advance ki based on what we are seeing, maybe in 2 weeks this can happen.
And this is again only batteries?
Yes, not just batteries. We're focusing, batteries are components of systems, right? So inside of a vehicle, a battery is a component. So a battery is a component of a system, and a system has a function to serve. For example, today in your two-wheelers, you want to complete 12 deliveries per day. You don't really care much about the battery. You care more about, this battery should give me the uptime, give me the range so that I can complete the 12 deliveries. So we have built the analytics platform to connect the dots between battery state of health, state of charge, charger availability, and functionality of your system. So we will not just model the battery, but also its host application and the function that it's supposed to serve.
Wow. And that's All2Go.
Yes.
And you rebranded Ion Energy into that? No, Ion
still is the holding company. All2Go is an independent.
So this business, which is the software cloud business, is that something that you continue to build, you and Alex?
Yeah.
And the other one is you are like mind support to the original business. So bandwidth wise, how much goes where in that sense?
So I think now Maxwell has its own leadership team. We're probably going to be relatively involved until the end of this FY and still support. Nice. And then I think from next FY onwards, we'll still be there. I think that we're still accountable because we have a lot of vested interest in the performance of the business. But I think that from an operational standpoint, it'll have its own leadership. I think that it depends, man. Regardless of what a contract says, both Alex and I are of the mindset that we are building long-term relationships with endurance, with everyone in the ecosystem, even with our customers, right? So sometimes the customer is more comfortable speaking to me because he built the relationship with me instead of the new CEO or new somebody else. So he'll call me and I'll answer the phone and sort of solve the problem, right? So we are trying to build deep, meaningful relationships for the long term. And then you say, okay, whatever it takes, regardless, you in the contract says 3 days a week, 2 days a week, those are just semantics, right? You do what it takes.
No, but very interestingly, I think since your journey has been building from scratch, coming from which place, by the way?
Born and brought up Mumbai.
So I won't call it a small place, Mumbai, but a humble beginning, creating a business, selling it out, and now on to the next journey, right? What do you reflect? As you said that you had some time to reflect as a founder, right? Any reflections that you want to share? You talk a lot about mind and body and soul. I don't know. Just talk a bit about how do you see as someone who's wanting to get into entrepreneurship, what all he can expect?
Okay. So a few different things. The first thing that I would say is if you're building in India, one of the very practical pieces of advice that I have is that be close to the end customer. Okay. The Indian ecosystem is not very, I would say, supportive to people that are hidden behind large enterprises. So basically, if you are a tier 2, tier 3 supplier of a commodity or a component, you don't necessarily get the margins, respect, or not even respect, but just sort of the flexibility to do things. You are simply, given a checklist and you are, investigated on cost and, you just basically, your customer will decide what margin you will make.
Cog in the wheel.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're building in India as a modern entrepreneur, not as a family business that is already supplying rubber or already supplying steel. If you're building a new business, be as close to the end customer as you can and stay there. One of the things that I reflect back on is that our pivots, in order to not risk the company, we started sort of going lower in the rungs to become component suppliers. And in the process, we lost the ability to innovate. So today, if I want to make a big innovation, I can't do that until my OEM will accept the deployment of it.
Right? That's right.
So that's an example of something that I would say is a practical advice in India. The other thing I would say is, here's what I've come to realize, that all great things, all great outcomes are a result of compounding. So today we're talking about 7-year journey, right? Like 1,000 BMSs in 3 years, 2,000 BMSs every day in 7 years. And so it's important for all of your listeners, and I think you will also agree, that the life-changing outcomes happen after year 7. So 7, 8, 9, na, wahan pe aapki life change hoti hai.
You're so right.
Right? So when you get started, if you are building something with a pure opportunistic mindset, you are not enjoying the process, you are target focused. So let's say आपको एक कंपनी बेचनी है, आपको कोई कंपनी बनानी है बड़ी,
या फिर एक वैल्यूएशन चेज कर रहे हो.
If you are chasing a target, right, and you are not actually caring about the problem or caring about the process, what will happen is that you will get very impatient for that outcome to manifest, right? यार कब होगा, right? You will make a lot of decisions to try and bring that closer, all right? Now what happens is, वो तो 7 साल लगाएगा. It's going to take 7 years to show up.
That's right.
So when you are in year 3, year 4, you start getting tired. You're like, man, I've spent 4 years on this. I've not made enough progress. That target is still not happened. When is it happening? And at year 4, you get tired. Year 5, you're like, okay, fine, let's just try, keep on going. And just when it's about to happen, in year 5 or 6, you sort of lose your momentum and you'll be like, look, I spent 6 years doing this. It's not happening. But actually it happens in year 7, 8, 9.
So right.
And in order for you to unlock that value in year 7, 8, 9, 10, it's important to choose something that you actually enjoy solving as a problem, right? So you have to be process oriented more than target oriented. ऐसा नहीं है कि target नहीं होना चाहिए. आप रखो target, आपको direction देगा, आपको inspire करेगा.
Even I think so, yeah.
हाँ, so it's good, right? So it's good to know where you want to go. But the problem statement has to be something that you care about.
Because target achieve नहीं होगा. Don't look at the outcome. Put the inputs.
Look at the outcome, but be focused on the process, right? Because if you fall in love with the process, then year 7, the outcome will manifest.
That's so right, actually. 7 years is the time when the startup typically starts getting to profitability, and then the scale is tremendous. Well, scale was always there, but the compounding.
No, but I've seen 7 is like a very interesting number.
So right. I can see ourselves in the 7 years now and how we can maneuver things and what control we have. But
And until 5, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. वो 5 और 7 के अंदर ना कुछ होता है. और वो that's like a
maturity आती है. Your teens are just over, I think, at after that, and then you get into.
और अगर आप देखेंगे ना, so today, the billionaires that we look up to, I'm not talking about the tech billionaires that sort of built it really big, but the previous generation of India, these guys, जो हम लोग 7 साल की बात करें ना, उन्होंने 30 साल के लिए किया है. तो आप खाली सोचो कि वो 7 से जब कंपाउंड होता है, अगर आपने खाली 7 साल और कर दिया ना, तो कोई रोक ही नहीं सकता आपको.
Any number that you put on, you can get
So when
there.
I was looking at your numbers outside, right, I was looking at the growth curve. I'm like, look, man, this business only Akash could have built because I know the kind of person you are. Like, you have to be a certain kind of person to build a certain kind of business.
Kaisa? Who should be that person?
So look, I think that building operational heavy businesses are very difficult. There are so many things on fire all the time. So you need a certain calibration of a person कि वो हर रोज कुछ ना कुछ जल रहा है, ठीक है, लेकिन आप उसमें भी इसे हंस रहे हो, पॉडकास्ट कर रहे हो, you are able to go through it. And it's not like, you are like this today. Even when I met you a few years ago, I think that you have been, relatively in control of the situation, even when so many things I'm sure must be on fire, especially if you're an ops heavy business.
I know.
If I'm a software business, I have 50 people sitting in an office, nice environment, nice AC, right? Because you are moving, 2 lakh deliveries a day. It's a very different world. तो वो if you take a SaaS entrepreneur and you put him in your shoes, भाई वो 2 हफ्ता नहीं चला पाएगा.
नहीं हो पाएगा. Yeah. No, it again, I am nothing. The team matters. The people who do the ops. I just go once in a while to check the mistakes that they do.
But you know what, something, Akash, I've realized the team does that because they know that you care. Right? So they see that, many times the only reason why someone will be willing to follow a leader is because they know that if required, the leader can step in their shoes and show them how it's done. So मतलब ऐसे नहीं है कि मैं बस कोई राजा की सीट पे बैठा हूँ और मैं बता रहा हूँ.
वो जमाने गए.
हाँ, कि अगर टाइम आएगा ना तो मैं भी कर सकता हूँ. वो उनको देखना है. तो आप वो शायद कर सकते हो, इसीलिए वो आपकी बात सुन रहे हैं.
नहीं, नो डाउट अबाउट इट. अभी हम लोग हब में बैठे थे 2 हफ्ता. वी सेट चलो हब पे देखते हैं, गाड़ियां समझते हैं क्या चल रहा है. वो करना पड़ता है.
तो इट्स नॉट जस्ट कि करना पड़ता है एज अ फाउंडर. द थिंग इज यू आर सेंडिंग अ मैसेज टू योर टीम.
हाँ, वो अपने आप ही होगा. मतलब करना पड़ता है फ्रॉम द लेंस की ये तो मजा आता है ये करने में, राइट? दैट्स द फन ऑफ इट.
So I'm very confident, by the way, and also my advice to you is please continue for 7 more years.
Wow.
ठीक है ना? मतलब don't navigate and exit very quickly. I don't know where you stand right now.
नहीं, हम तो अभी बना रहे हैं.
But in general, जो आपने ये 7 साल में किया ना, यार जो next 7 साल में होगा ना, वो आप सोच ही नहीं सकते. And that's what one of my big takeaways for my next venture, right, would be that great results are a result of compounding. And a great story for this, okay? Let's take an example. Compounding की बात समझते हैं.
ठीक है.
Let's say today you take one step, which is 1 feet from the other. ठीक है, हम यहाँ से उतरते हैं. We'll take 1 step, okay? The second step should be 2 feet apart, so double of first. Third step will be 4 feet apart, double of second.
Correct.
ठीक है. So right now we are sitting in Gurgaon. How many steps will it take for us to go from here to the airport? आप बताइए.
यार तुम डेटा एनालिटिक्स और सॉफ्टवेयर वाले बंदे हो. मैं तो यार
So every step is double of the first step. Okay. So how many steps from here
I'm
to
sure the compounding would be massive, right? It should be what, 50 steps possibly?
50 steps? How many steps from here to Mumbai?
Yeah, that should be like 5x of that or 3x of that rather, because compounding is happening. Yeah.
So here's a fact. If you started taking double steps, your 30th step, 30, will be on the moon.
What are you saying? Really? Wow.
And until the 27th step, you are still on Earth.
Wow.
The last 3 steps.
Phenomenal, man. Really.
So the 28th step will take you quarter way, then halfway, and then
Jump, man.
all the way. So that's the thing. Our brain does not think in a compounding fashion. It sort of thinks linearly.
It is. It does. We don't know actually.
We don't know कि वो 26 step के बाद में कैसे life change होती है.
दुनिया क्या बदलेगी?
So this is what I've learned, and I've realized that boss, next game you have to play a long game.
You feel कि जल्दी exit कर दिया था?
It's not about jaldi exit कर लिया था. I think that the problem that we chose, the fact that we had to pivot from that, right? It put us into an environment that we are not prepared for, right? So we tried to solve a problem of battery swapping and infrastructure and financing, but we got into a manufacturing business. So when you shift gears, you don't have the skill set, right? So if you have trained for boxing and suddenly you're in jiu-jitsu or you're suddenly in a different sport, you can't win in that sport. So you have to, I would say partner with someone and then find, your sport again.
So good, so good. Anything more on life that you want to share, man? For people who want to build startups?
No, man. I think that, today I was listening to one of the other podcasts and there was a beautiful thing that I heard from the founder of ThyroCare.
Oh, nice. Velumani. Oh, yeah, he's a crazy.
So I was listening to one of his pieces and he said that there are phases in your life where you are either discussing or deciding, right? And he said that as long as you are discussing, you have not made a decision. And once you have decided, there is no need for discussion. And so for all the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, if you are discussing ideas with your friends, with your family, with your anybody, was just decide, get started, take the first step, and then do something that you are willing to commit 20 years to. That's my last piece of advice, because the journey will change after year 7. And if you get tired before year 7, you will not reap the benefits that you aspire to.
No, that's the biggest lesson of this podcast, which is if you're building, 7 years is when the inflection point will happen. So at least commit your 14, 15 years to enjoy the benefits of it. Yeah, वहीं पे pivotal point आएगा. So nice, yaar. So good to chat with you. I know we had a very short time. Both of us are busy in our office work. You're traveling from Mumbai, but how much time are you spending on yourself? Anything on life or personality that you're changing? कैसे सीख रहे हो? थोड़ा सा ये class में वो input भी दे दो. Anything on fitness? Anything on diet? Anything on investing?
No, yeah. I mean, I think I've always taken care of my body. I know that my body is, just like we say, a company is a vehicle to serve. My body is a vehicle that enables me to serve, right? So I've taken care of my body through and through. One thing that I'm living by right now, which is very interesting, is that जब हम बच्चे थे, छोटे थे, आप वाटर पार्क गए थे, क्यों गए थे? सही है, मजे के लिए. तो सम स्लाइड्स लंबी लाइन थी, ठीक है, तो गर्मी में रुकना पड़ता था. और मुझे यार ये क्या है यार, फिर 1 मिनट में वो स्लाइड खत्म हो गई, ठीक है, फिर लेकिन मजा आया तो फिर से लाइन में रुके, ठीक है. दूसरे स्लाइड पे ना लाइन थी ही नहीं, तो वी रैन वेरी क्विकली, यार चल 2-3 बार कर लेते हैं, ठीक है. फिर जब थक गए, वेंट टू वेव पूल एंड जस्ट चिल्ड. भूख लगी तो खाना खाया. तो भगवान ने हमको एक वाटर पार्क भेजा है, ये वाटर पार्क है, ठीक है. तो जो भी करो मजा आना चाहिए,
चाहे वो धूप में भी खड़े हो, लाइन में भी खड़े हो,
कुछ भी हो. अगर आपको वो कंपनी बनानी है तो धूप में खड़ा रहना पड़ेगा और वो करना पड़ेगा जो आपको करना है. सो समटाइम्स इट विल बी ओपन एंड यू विल बी सरप्राइज कि यार इतनी मस्त अपॉर्चुनिटी कोई कर ही नहीं रहा, आप करो 3-4 बार कर लो, ठीक है. समटाइम्स अगर आपके मन में आया कि नहीं यार यहाँ पे तो मुझे भाई को भी लेकर चलना है, तो उसको भी लाइन में खड़ा कराओगे. सो गो थ्रू द मोशंस ऑफ योर लाइफ बट हैव फन, right? So I will take care of my body, I'll take care of my mind, I will sit, spend time with myself. And, if we talk about physical wellness, if we talk about mental, spiritual wellness, I ask a lot of people. So today, let's say if you want to find out more about your mom, okay, your mom, तो आपको किसके साथ टाइम बिताना पड़ेगा? उसके पेरेंट्स, with her, right? तो वैसे ही if you want to know more about yourself, तो आपको किसके साथ टाइम बिताना पड़ेगा? खुद के साथ. और आज हम क्या ना, वी आर जस्ट बेसिकली गोइंग सीन टू सीन, ऑफिस, होम, गर्लफ्रेंड, फ्रेंड्स, somewhere. So we're just going in different scenes.
That's right.
So what we need to do, if we want to know more about like what do I really want, right? Where do I really want to go? You have to make time for yourself. And so that's one other piece that I do a lot for myself. I like to spend time with myself. I reflect a lot. I write a lot, and think about what am I really doing?
Are you into meditation also?
Absolutely. But meditation is a buzzword, right? It's a label. What is meditation? Meditation is making time for yourself. So if you are making time for yourself, if there are two worlds, right? एक बाहर की दुनिया है, एक अंदर की दुनिया है. Like today, if you went back home, आपने देखा कि आपका पूरा घर खराब पड़ा, डस्ट आ गया है, धूल आ गई है, सब कपड़े इधर उधर हैं. तो अब क्या करोगे? क्या आप बोलोगे यार छोड़ दे, मैं सो जाता हूँ? नहीं, आप बोलोगे नहीं यार मैं ऐसे कैसे सो सकता हूँ, राइट? यू विल स्टार्ट क्लीनिंग अप लिटिल बिट कि यार आज ये रूम साफ कर लेता हूँ, यहाँ पे सो जाता हूँ काउच पे, कल उठ के वो साफ कर लूंगा, परसों वो कर लूंगा. तो वैसे ही व्हेन यू क्लोज योर आइज एंड यू गो इन द इनर वर्ल्ड, तो आपको दिखता है कि क्या क्या अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड है, ठीक है. तो बोलते यार आज इसको सही कर लेता हूँ, ठीक है, फिर यहाँ पे सो जाऊंगा. एंड देन यू जस्ट मेक टाइम टू क्लीन अप द इनर वर्ल्ड एज वेल. Because no matter what you are seeing on Instagram, over here you're seeing this podcast, you're seeing me, Akash, this big company. Boss, I don't know what it's like to live inside your skin, your body. How do you feel inside? I don't know.
सही बात है.
Right? So you can look at the Ambanis or Elon Musk. We don't know what it is like to live that life. If he has kept his inner life in order, it will be beautiful. If he has not kept his inner life in order,
और वहां तक पहुंच भी नहीं पाएगा फिर.
नहीं पहुंच जाते हैं.
Without being in order.
कहाँ पे?
If they are not internally in order, then Elon Musk cannot be Elon Musk.
No, of course you can.
Yeah?
Of course, because you've just focused on the outside, right? So today there is a lot of projection and pretense. Like if you live in the philosophy कि यार अगर मुझे अंदर अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है तो मुझे बाहर कुछ सही करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है. तो क्या होता है मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ, सिंपल सी चीज, ठीक है. टुडे अपना हाथ दिखाइए, ठीक है.
देखो भाई,
मैं ऐसे हाथ लगा रहा हूँ,
हाँ.
आपको दर्द हो रहा है?
नहीं
ना. मालूम है क्यों? क्योंकि आपका घाव नहीं है. यू डोंट हैव एनी वुंड्स, राइट? अगर यहाँ पर आपको एक वुंड होता ना और मैंने टच किया होता तो आप चिल्लाते. सही है. यही हो रहा है दुनिया में, ठीक है. अगर आपको बुरा लग रहा है ना, किसी ने आपको कुछ बोला, किसी ने आपके साथ कुछ किया और आपको बुरा लगा, तो उसने कुछ नहीं किया है, वो आपका घाव था वहां पे.
करेक्ट. He just touched it.
हाँ,
so right.
तो हम उसको ब्लेम करें यार तूने वहां पे क्यों हाथ लगाया मुझे. भाई वो तो उसने तो हाथ लगाया, दुनिया तो हवा चलेगी तो आपको दर्द होगा.
बट तुमने कहा कि Elon Musk without focusing on internal self can become Elon Musk. तो वो अच्छा है.
अच्छा और बुरा तो ये अभी नया पॉडकास्ट ही है हमारा, ठीक है ना?
I know.
ये दूसरा पॉडकास्ट
हमें और टाइम स्पेंड करना पड़ेगा जब तुम नेक्स्ट टाइम मुंबई
लेकिन
से
हम
आओगे.
ये बोल सकते हैं
हाँ.
कि देयर आर टू वर्ल्ड्स, देयर इज एन एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड एंड एन इंटरनल वर्ल्ड, एंड इफ यू वांट टू डिजाइन अ ब्यूटीफुल लाइफ, a life which is blissful, not just successful, then you have to work on both the worlds.
And which is what Akhil is.
I mean, that's what I'm aspiring towards, and that's what I sort of work towards.
So nice. Amazing. That's a great food for thought for a lot of guys, right? Focus on the inside and the outside and balance it out, because zindagi santulan mein hi hai.
Absolutely.
Lovely, man. So good to have you. Cheers. And to our 7-8 years of,
Knowing each other.
building into
Yes.
EVs and knowing each other.
Yeah.
So nice. Thanks.
All the best.
Cheers. Wasn't Akhil so sorted in his brain? He's kind of talked about very interesting concepts about life, about mind, about startups, about exits, and about that little kid who wanted to build something and knew nothing. I think हर एक entrepreneur की जर्नी ऐसी होती है, और अखिल की जर्नी भी आई एम श्योर आपको बहुत अच्छी लगी होगी. क्या हाई पॉइंट बेस्ट लगा इस पॉडकास्ट का, क्या लो पॉइंट था जिसको इंप्रूव कर सकते हैं, किस तरह के और गेस्ट को बुला सकते हैं इस पॉडकास्ट पे, जरा कमेंट्स में डाल के बताओ. और सब्सक्राइब करो और लोगों के साथ शेयर करो, क्योंकि जितने ज़्यादा सब्सक्राइबर्स होंगे उतना ज़्यादा ये स्टार्टअप ज्ञान लोगों तक पहुंचेगा, एंड देश में एंटरप्रेन्योर्स तभी आएंगे. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग.